Hello and welcome to Why AI. Why AI is your go-to podcast for all things AI. I'm your host Harry Styles and I'm here to talk you through the exciting, sometimes daunting world of AI. I'll be talking to industry experts, teachers and enthusiasts about the different aspects of AI, from the myths to the real-life applications. So whether you're completely new to AI or a tech expert, there's something here for you. So hello and welcome to Why AI. So I've been I was looking at online and everything and on Twitter this morning, and over the weekend there was London Tech Week, and Rishi Sunak had basically brought up the idea and it being probably one of the most powerful aspects of education that AI can hold is it being a personal tutor.
Sure.
Which I don't know if we've spoken about on here before. I know we've obviously had quite a few conversations and
a little bit, I think so. But obviously interesting.
Especially
I think
considering you've got quite a
that's something that we're working on. Yeah, for sure. That's it. I basically agree. I think a personal tutor is huge. I think like anyone that's not worked in education, as I don't think Rishi has, I think they'll be missing the fact that basically it's a personal tutor goes beyond just being able to answer your questions.
Yeah.
Because that's the point. I keep stressing this. Loads of tools, they all work on the fact that you know the question you want to ask, and that's what Google works on. You know what I mean, like that, and it's perfect, it's brilliant. And so is ChatGPT. You know what I mean. You want to ask a question about something, you can pretty much get an answer straight away.
Yeah.
However, like when you're learning about new things, that's not how it works. Like that's why we go to lesson. That's why we go to a classroom. To learn about things that we don't know we need to know, if that makes sense. And some cases it's that we don't know we need to know, some cases that we're not really motivated to know. Like that's the case. Let's be really, really honest. Like lots of students, it's not just about the fact they don't know what they need to know, it's like they don't have the motivation to know that they need to, to really want to know, if that makes sense. So when it comes to a personal tutoring, the thing that I'm really focusing on is the idea of the fact that it's about more than just being a tutor. I prefer to call it like a teacher or a teaching assistant or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Because it's much more about guiding the student around knowledge that they need to know rather than just being a tutor. Do you see what I mean? Which I think when at the moment there's loads of great AI tutors if you're just focusing on the fact of asking it a question, or you could be like randomly generate me a cool topic or something like that. Do you know what I mean? But I don't think there's much out there for like becoming a tutor that guides you through a set of topics and so on, and that's where I'm really working on at the moment.
So in regards to like you said, it's different in the fact that it needs to be able to motivate you, because that obviously is the key one. How
I don't necessarily mean there's obviously loads of things with motivation that we've worked on other projects that are really just take things like people don't know about, like Duolingo or Strava or anything like that. They work on motivation over trying to get you to like want to keep a streak, want to collect coins, want to that. Like there's loads of tools out there that are really focused on that kind of thing. You know what I mean? That definitely. But
so the motivation side might not fully come from the AI.
Not necessarily. What I'm more concerned about is I am concerned about that part of it, but I'm also more concerned about the fact that guiding students through a set of topics. Do you see what I mean? Like that. That's the key. It's like a student, let's say they've got to learn a certain section of stuff for their GCSE or for their A level or whatever country you live in for the exams. You know what I mean? Then rather than it being a case of what do you want to know or ask me a question, it's like, shall we do a bit about algebraic fraction today, or should we do a little bit about the First World War or whatever, you know what I mean, they need to know. Should we do a bit about the kidney and the nephron and all that sort of stuff?
So it takes almost control of the learning rather than...
Exactly, that's it, 100%, like a teacher does. Like a teacher does. Now, I'm not trying to replace teachers, let's just get that clear, because that's not... Well, I'm not going to say that's never going to be possible, but that's not possible at the moment, certainly. You know what I mean, with the way AI is at the moment. Like I say, you've got to have you want students to work in groups, you want them to work collaboratively, you want them to, answer questions, discuss with the teacher, all that kind of stuff. So that AI is a bit of a way off from that. But what I'm thinking is more from the case of just rather, a lot of time revision and homework and stuff like that. Everyone's sort of saying, how do you do homework now? That kind of thing. If you just type it all in ChatGPT. Well, the whole point here is ChatGPT is asking you, the equivalent of ChatGPT is asking you the questions. You know what I mean? It's saying, oh, you should know this, you should know that, and that's actually been where the bulk of where we're having to work is not really on the AI side of things. That's, I wouldn't say easy, but that's relatively simple. The real knowledge bank is, well, the real difficulty is building that knowledge bank so that it maps what you know. I think that's really crucial. That's a real exciting point, because everyone's tried to do this for years, in the sense that you want to be able to map, or in many cases you want to be able to map what a student knows and what they don't know, and that's obviously really useful, because especially, you know, subjects like maths is obviously critical, but other subjects it's huge as well. And if you can say, oh, actually, that you clearly know how to answer these styles of questions, you know, like I don't know, giving an argument, you know, to giving an argument, can you write the opposing argument? Maybe you struggle with that, you know what I mean, kind of thing. So there's all sorts of stuff like that where it's going to work in all subjects, or many subjects, in the sense that it will allow you to go, this student doesn't know this whole chunk of area, you know, that we can now work on, and that's really exciting, I think.
So how, just for obviously for myself and for people who might not be quite as, you know, technically inclined or so used to AI, how would you sort of explain in sort of simple terms, how will it map it?
Yeah, what we're doing is we're mapping it. So we're already mapping the curriculums, we're mapping the information, so we've got all of that stored, so you can say this, and like we're trying to get it in as fine detail as possible. And then when the student starts to answer questions on it, it will then say, oh yeah, you've completed that bit. And that's why we're looking for schools to trial the systems. You know, it's called My School AI. We're looking for schools to trial that, so that they can so that we can get some feedback, you know what I mean, to see how well it's working, and you know, that'll help us improve on and on. It's an iterative process, and we're at the early stages, so as it gets better and better on each release, it's going to have more and more impact, you know, because of the feedback that it's been receiving. Exactly.
It will evolve.
It looks at what people are putting in, you know what I mean, it's then able to be rebuilt based on what they're putting in, that kind of thing.
So will that, like ChatGPT, will that store, like in that regard, will it store the information that is constant, so as over time, the more people that use it, the more it grows? Yeah,
there's that side of things, but also there's just the fact that, you know, our developers and so on will, as we improve you know, as we look at it, we will look at it and go, right, this is working, this isn't working, you know. Like you come back to motivation, that's something we haven't massively built into it yet, but we have done in other systems, and that'll be something we'll be hugely interested in how do you motivate them, you know. Lots of systems work really well in terms of, like, you know, collecting coins and things like that. You know what I mean? Like there's like things like that. There's other systems like, you know, that like Duolingo. You know what I mean? You can look at things like that have, you know, constantly bugging me every day to get back to learning Spanish. Exactly, that kind of thing. So there's definitely benefits there that definitely things there we can work on and use. But at the moment, we're more trying to focus on just that kind of, how do we build a good knowledge base? How do we allow, you know, how do we make the system the most useful for the student and for a teacher, so that you can see, you know, the student progress, and they can identify areas that they want to support them on and stuff like that. It's just like taking that, like, we've obviously worked in data for a long time, and it's like taking that data to the next level. It's like not just one bit of data and saying, oh, you've got to be in Spanish, or 5 in Spanish or 9 in Spanish or whatever. Now it's going to be much more like, okay, you need to work on like the past tense because you don't know about that or something. Course, I'm not a Spanish teacher, you know what I mean? It's that kind of thing. So there's like loads of things there that are going to make a massive difference when it comes to being able to like see a map of a student's knowledge, and that's what I'm really excited about, being able to say like, which areas are you weak at. And it's not like I say, it's not like Spanish or geography. It's like this tiny little area, let's work on that, and the system will do that. The system picks up and knows that. So that's exciting, and I agree. I just think that with going right back to what you started with, Tom, I agree that personal tutors are a massive thing. I think there's loads of other things as well. I think that if you take let's take it a little bit step further and take it out into like the working world, or as a teacher or whatever, any job that or even just in general life, I think that the personal assistant will be massive. So that's kind of like the next Siri, basically. At the moment, if you've got Siri or Cortana or one or the other one, Alexa or something like that, at the moment they're very sort of like one statement you know, you ask it one statement, it gives you as best an answer as it can. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You might be able to follow up with a second one. That might be built into it. But if you ask it 9 statements in a row, it can't go back and know what you asked 9 statements ago. Do you know what I mean? And that's going to be the difference. We've talked about this at length, but I think we will see a big change when you have, you know, this change to kind of suddenly it being write me an email, and you just sort of trust it to write the email for you. Do you know what I mean? I think at some point it will get to that point where it's like you will just trust it more than yourself, in the same way that you're like, I guess, just being really like, I don't know, probably really bad example, but you always trust the brakes on your car.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Okay,
you don't
right,
try and put your foot out the door, slow yourself down.
Okay,
so you know what I mean?
Sense.
You're always like, you know, like a pilot trusts the systems that they use. Do you know what I mean? Like, obviously, like, these are a bit more catastrophic things, aren't they? But obviously they go wrong occasionally. But, you know, in the same way, like, I'm sure hospitals, doctors, whatever, or, you know, everyone trusts it to some extent. You know what I mean? And it's like, what point do you trust it to just write the email and you wouldn't even consider, like, it's just going to send you that email. And, you know, so if you want to send an email saying, I don't know what you might want to send one about, but, you know, you just want to send an email to a friend saying, let's, I don't know, play football on Wednesday or something, you know what I mean? Like, you just go send a message or email or text or whatever saying that, and it'll just do that, but it'll write it differently. It won't just go football Wednesday thing. It'll say, do you fancy playing football? And it'll probably bring in your style of how you write and how you talk and all that. You know, there's all of that. And I think, like, obviously bigger things, it'll be like, just write me a, like, at the moment, obviously you can go into ChatGPT and type all this in and get a good answer and then change it a bit. But at some point, like I'm saying, it'll just be like, you know, write me a description for whatever it is I'm going to teach next week. Or,
so there'll be no prompts needed at the time.
It's just like a kind of, you just
already be built
you
for
just
you.
And it like understands you and what you're likely to want to put out.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? I think that's I've said it before. I think there will be someone will get the best personal assistant, or 2 or 3 companies will get the best personal assistant. I'm talking like your big companies. You know what I mean? Like that, and they will and you'll then. Like, again, I've said it before, I think keyboards will disappear eventually. You know what I mean? The idea of a keyboard will just be like maybe you can make it pop up on your screen, you know what I mean, and to adjust something. But
there'll essentially be
just
no need.
Yeah, because you talk to it, you'd say, go back and change this. Like, obviously, we can talk a little bit about it. I think it'd be good to talk about the new releases from Apple with those new goggles. Yes, yeah. You know, £3,500, a bit expensive, but like we said before, you in 2007 when iPhone was released, you wouldn't say I'd spend £1,200 every 2 years on a phone.
Absolutely
and not everyone, but most people buy either an iPhone, or anyone that's on an iPhone contract or a decent Samsung contract is paying that sort of money every 2 years just for the phone. So I'm not going to say it's guaranteed, but in 5 years' time, I can see us paying £2,500 on a headset, because happily, that's what you end up doing. You know what I mean? Because, like, I don't know about happily, but like, the idea, you know, a headset is if it's going to be like that's where you do all your work and all that kind of thing, then I can see that sort of happening. You know what I mean? And someone else will make one for £600, but it won't be as good or anything. You know what I mean? It'll just be like everything with technology. But it's really interesting, that headset stuff, because, you know, like how you give your parents your phone, or you get parents a phone or whatever, and particularly if you got might be grandparents, some people, but you know, but people are often they'll pick up technology and they struggle with it, and like this will be the next thing where it's like all the kids are really really good with the. You know, pinching the screen and whatever the changes are with it, and then like I'll be there with it trying to work it out. Like, you know what I mean? It'll be just like that's the way things will move on.
Tony Stark stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, but then I think that's where the large language models will be massive in that, because you'll just be like I can see you just having a headset on, just being like open photos, you know, I don't know, change the background to whatever, or you know, I want to create a PDF, right? So it opens up a document. Here's what I want to say, and it gives you a nice summary. It says, I don't really like the last sentence, change it to whatever, you know what I mean? Like that'll just be that I can just see will definitely happen, because it just will make it so much easier to edit documents. And suddenly, like I say, it'd be like a keyboard. Why would I use a keyboard? And I think it'll be
interesting as well, like by the time perhaps the second of, you know, because the first one that comes out, there's a, you know, and obviously technology is amazing, but there's the history of when they bring the new products out, it's usually the, you know, the second or the third or the fourth, and that's when they start to master it. But be interesting when they get to the second installment of it, how good AI, you know, how much AI has evolved since then. You've got to remember, like, seeing how they combine.
If this headset was released last week or whatever, that must have been in production for a couple of years. The large language model, ChatGPT style stuff really just hit, like, I know it's been around for a while, but it properly hit in 6 months ago, you know what I mean? So that probably won't have been a massive input into building that headset.
No.
So you can imagine, like you say, the next one,
when it's intertwined,
the equivalent person, Samsung or whatever the equivalent is, you know what I mean? When they release theirs, or Meta, you know, that they're obviously working on something, stuff, you know what I mean? And, you know, when they release theirs, that's going to make a big difference. I think you're going to see that's probably going to incorporate the whole, like you say, the next iteration will incorporate the whole understanding, being able to really understand what you're saying. I use the word understanding quite loosely, but you know what I mean? Being able to, like, respond to what you're saying correctly is maybe a better way of putting it. So it's definitely, like, you know, you can have that really quick discussion with it, and it'll do something, you know, like I say, write me an email to whatever, you know, this company complaining about the whatever, you know, my hotel room, and it'll appear and it'll write in the description. You say, oh, I didn't like the last line, change that to this, and you'll just speak it to it, and it'll just be like 99.9, be more accurate than when you type it. Do you know what I mean? Like, you think about how, like, I don't know about you, but I find every sentence I write, I'll put, like, something wrong and I have to change it, you know what I mean? So it'd be like that, but, you know, again, that'll just make a huge difference. Efficiency wise.
It's I was going to mention it at some point, just because obviously the apps come out for ChatGPT for iPhone in England now, isn't it? In the UK. So, but the fact that you can sort of, obviously it's very, very, very basic because it's not sort of connected as such, but you can ask Siri, hey Siri, ask ChatGPT, which is sort of like, it's getting nearer to that now. It's getting nearer to getting everything closer to you and being your personal assistant.
It is, definitely. I think as well, it's going to take it takes a bit of time. Like, I think, oh, that sounds great, and then I go to try and use it, and I think I can't think of use cases until like I'm like, and like that's one of the things that will make a big difference when you can, like, I think it just needs to go that one more step into being integrated into everything, and then suddenly it'll be like really. You know, so like, hey Siri, can you use ChatGPT to write an email? So it writes it. You know what I mean? That will be a difference. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that, I don't know if you've tried it, but on the app it has the recording button. And it actually uses OpenAI's Whisper.
Oh right,
which is unbelievably good. It's like unbelievably good. Really? Like, just try it and, like, mumble at it, speak really badly.
Oh, I've heard, you know, we've spoken about it.
You know, like, speak it, like, in really bad English, and it seems to work really, really
picks
well.
Everything up.
Yeah, I would recommend that as that is. Even if you weren't using ChatGPT to ask it a question, just use it to dictate into. It's better than any of the other things. But like I say, it's all separate, and you'll have to dictate it, copy it, put it here, and that's what I'm saying. It's just that one step away from being, like, seamless. You know, seamless. Yeah. I think there's a couple of things we also talk about. So there's, like, we talked a little bit about AutoGPT a couple of weeks ago. So that's where you basically, if you imagine, have a system where you give it a command. And it will basically go away, and it will spin up different GPT iterations, if you like, to try and answer a problem.
Okay, right.
So there's loads of really good examples of it doing this. You know what I mean? So if it's something like we said about, like, find me the best 10 restaurants in London, it'll look for it, and then it'll spin up another one and say, oh, are these really the best? And it'll check it, and it'll do all sorts of stuff like that. You know what I mean? You can like plan me an itinerary away for a weekend away, and it'll spin up all these different agents and do it. And there's another one called Super AGI that's the same sort of principle, but even better. It has loads and loads of what do you want to call it? It has loads of plugins, I guess, but I don't really mean plugins because it sort of automatically uses them. But that's quite interesting because that's a system that will allow you to basically ask it to make you, like, a website or something, or long term it'll make you a website, and it'll be able to do a load of stuff on it, not just generate a bit of code. It'll do this, and it'll then, like, question it, and it'll then spin up another one to go and find another bit of code to do something else, and so on. You know what I mean? And that's what I mean about, we're on the steps to it. People are trying to build these kind of, like, basic I say basic, they're obviously not that basic, but I mean like the first stage, if you like, of these kind of like bots that do everything
the automated, automated
like big,
world that we're
exactly. And I think
slowly creeping into.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's it. Yeah, and I think Super AGI is one that's worth looking into.
Super AGI.
Yeah, and all of these are people. There's loads of stuff coming out, obviously, but that's a big one at the moment.
Right.
And that takes it another step. Again, it's much further than just ChatGPT. Of like it's just using the same stuff. It's probably just using OpenAI, I assume. But it's just using multiple iterations of it. By multiple, that's not the right word. Multiple little agents. So you've got like one of them set up to do one thing, to do one part of the task, another one then set up to do another part of the task. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
So you could say to it, research about the latest developments in antibiotics and write a blog that gives top 3 antibiotics created in the last year or something like that. And so that would then spin up an agent that would go and look for the information. It would then go, here's loads of the findings. It then spin up another agent that would sort through those to like look for the ones that have actually like had high impact. And then it would create the third agent would be there to write the blog. Do you know what I mean? So it's like a kind of it's a bit like if we were going to do that here, who would be the best person to go and like do the research? Who would be the best person to do the actual thinning it out? And then who would be the best person to like write the blog? You know what I mean? And arguably they'd be like 3 different people, and so it's sort of asking the different agents to do different things, and that's quite interesting.
So it's just got multiple different
multiple versions. It's multiple like little AIs that are doing the bits. Yeah, exactly. And that's what I'm sort of saying about the whole kind of like personal assistant thing. It's like that's the sort. This is where we're going down those lines of, one of. It won't you won't feel like this, I don't think, when it eventually arrives. So what will be happening is one of them will go away and find the information, another one will then write the Word document, another agent will write this, and that allows it to like have specialist agents focusing on different tasks. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
And I think that things will be, I might be completely wrong, but I think that you can basically, because you can fine-tune these large language models to do certain things, these personal assistants will have different agents that are fine-tuned in different ways to do different aspects, if that makes sense. Because part of the problem is speed. You know what I mean? Like definitely part of the problem is speed, because
the plugins.
Yeah, the plugins, but also just asking. Like, it feels really quick when it comes back, but it's a massive language model. Do you know what I mean? And so it's basically 2 questions. Can we like scale up hugely and have loads and loads of GPUs running so that GPT-4 is like just as fast as that 3.5 or faster? Do you know what I mean?
3.5 is fast.
But only fast on the GPT. It's not so fast when you run it through the API.
Okay, right.
So that's just because ChatGPT has specialist access, if you like. So when you run it through the API, it can take 10 seconds to give you an answer. It can take 15 seconds to give you an answer if you give it a decently chunked prompt. You know what I mean? If you say to it, write an email about some, and give it a couple of lines,
just super vague prompts,
and then it might take 10-15 seconds to come back. Now that doesn't sound like long.
No.
Obviously it's a hell of a lot quicker than you write an email, but if you've got multiple of those agents stacked on top of each other, it might start to take like a minute. You know what I mean? And then suddenly it starts to feel like it takes a long time.
And then raises the question of, shall I just do it myself?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Whereas, and partly that's because of the scalability, the amount of GPU that's needed. But then the other side of it is the size of language model that's required. Now, if you could, like, obviously we've talked about other ones like Alpaca and Llama and all these different language models that are out there. Now, if you were to be able to scale those down, you were to be able to say, this agent is fine-tuned on a small language model, much smaller, but it's really good at, I don't know, whatever, summarizing, ordering tasks, let's say, you know what I mean, kind of thing. So what you might find is that you go to different language models for different things. Like, you're not doing that. It's just there's a first language model that's categorizing what you're asking. It then takes you on to another language model that's very good at doing some summarizing text. You know what I mean? So if your thing is to take or expanding on text, so if your thing is to ask it to write an email, and from this it can do that really quickly. Another one is there just to literally move it around and open up email and put it in the email and do whatever. You know what I mean? And if you were to have, you might have multiple fine-tuned ones that are really small, but that would make them really, really quick. Do you see what I mean? And that's the key. So if you ask there's loads of them out there. But if you ask one of them that's designed specifically to categorize data, let's say, and you say to it, can you write me an email? You just get gibberish back.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Or very not particularly useful content. Do you know what I mean? That's the real amazing thing with the Chat GPT and GPT-4 is how it can do everything. But my question is, are we going to be in a position, like what we might end up with is just a place where it's like everything just scales up like crazy. You get like instant responses on GPT-4 because they're just running like billions of pounds worth of GPUs because it's just worth it for them. Do you know what I mean? Or it might be the case, like I say, that these smaller language models, but that are very good at specific things, can be fine-tuned and then work within a sort of a team of language models where something identifies what you need to know, what you need to do, and it goes to the right language model that's particularly good at doing that. But then another one does something else and so on, you know what I mean? And that's all able to happen like in a few seconds.
Have you had a look at Gemini at all? Have you that's meant to be like, I mean, I'm nowhere near as even remotely as up on it as you are in regards to just like understanding the models and everything like that, but I believe that is
I don't know, I probably should have another look at that, but I think that maybe that's what that's using. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's. I don't know what it's got. It's just about as big parameter wise. I think it's just about as big as GPT-4.
Is it? Okay. Well.
But it's very much based around. Sorry if I'm absolutely butchering what this actually is, by the way, which I probably am. But it's in regards to bouncing off and speaking. That it's using many different things to speak to each other to get. So
well, maybe it's using different plugins or something like that. That's the real interesting thing. It's like going. That's where it becomes really powerful. And like at the moment, it's like, you know, the kind of idea of saying, oh, people are going to lose their jobs and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, right now, basically, what it means is you can be a lot more efficient. So if there's two people doing a job of copywriting out for a website, probably one person can do it now. Do you know what I mean? Kind of thing. Because they're going to use GPT-4. They're then going to like thin that down, adapt it, put it in the right place, put it on the website, blah blah blah.
But there still needs to be that human interaction to pull it out. They've still got to read it, they've still got to look at it, they've still got to say, "No, that's not quite right." Rerun it again, do it again. You know what I mean? I definitely think 100% there'll be people that where those jobs are going, because why not? Especially if it's somewhere where can't really think of a good use case of this, but where you're not actually that bothered about the quality. I know that sounds stupid, because why would you be not? But if you're like somewhere where you've just got to put a lot of information out, you know what I mean, like kind of thing, and it's just got to be half decent, and you probably get away with, having a much more, a much speedier response. And I think that's the sort of thing. So places where you get like 10 people writing content, well, suddenly it's like 2 people are writing content. Right. Do you know what I mean? Because they can do. One person can do, a couple of people's jobs. But I think there's at some point that will just become where it's like, okay, I'm just going to ask it. I'm going to just say, we need content. I need 2 posts a day about this topic. Like, as in, like, we work in a tech company and we just need 2 blog posts, whatever, put on our website. It's like, crack on, and it'll just do it every day. It just does it. It's like literally having an employee. And that will only come about when you get these things working together. So when you get these autonomous agents or whatever, you know what I mean, where they work together to produce content or whatever. And I think that'll be massive. I think that'll be huge in loads of areas. Like talking to someone the other day who works in labs. And lab work is just so different to what it was 20 years ago. Like chemical, like people that work for like places like GSK or, AstraZeneca, places like that. Massive difference that, they'd sort of say to me, oh, well, I'm going to butcher this because this isn't my expertise, but there's some butchering
going on. 20 years ago, you would say maybe able to test like 10 chemicals, 10 of these, whatever they are, like antibiotic growth, or looking at how antibiotics affect bacterial growth, or like looking at a certain chemical reacting with something else. I'm again butchering it, but whereas now, and you'd need like 15, you'd maybe need like 100 mil or 50 mil of the solution, what I mean? And it's like now a computer will do 600 of them a day, and it needs like 10 micrograms of the same stuff. Do you know what I mean? And it's just like nothing like, and they're saying it's just nothing like, no one has to do anything. Like, You don't have to do any of the process that you used to have to do. It's like all automated, and then they basically are just looking for hits. They're looking for a hit, like that's something that works. You know what I mean? And then when they're like, oh, that works, then maybe a chemist will then scale it up a bit. You know what I mean? And do it on a large scale and look at it. But the difference is massive, and I just think that's just going to go like skywards with like what they can start to do when it just gets completely automated. Like, you literally, who are you relying on? Like, you're just literally relying on maybe the person that just says at the start, we need to find a cure for this. You know what I mean? That's all you're relying on. You know what I mean?
That's why people are terrified.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
that's why.
Because it could take. Because I think that there's just stuff there that when it starts to work across multiple things, like multiple genres of stuff, you know what I mean, being able to just like, oh, one agent does this, it's like that will have a massive impact. Like all sorts of things like that, like warehouse work, I think, you know what I mean, you know, other than move, you know, like there's the robotics of that obviously, but a lot of it's designed now so the robot doesn't have to be particularly complicated, you know what I mean? I can just see that changing massively. We've talked before about like call center work. You know, if you had like ChatGPT is great, but it doesn't understand your company. But as soon as you have like a couple of autonomous agents that fully understand your company, then why would you speak to a person when it's like you've got a person that someone that's like sounds like a person that knows everything about the company? Well, why would you want to talk to a person that is a person, so sounds like a person, but doesn't actually know that much about the company? You know, I think that's
like the moral coding of stuff is that something that you think is just going to be an issue yourself? Because I mean, for example, self-driving cars, you know, it come into a situation where it's, you know, obviously quite dark, but it's either this person or this person. What, you know, but then that's the ethics, isn't it?
I think I agree. They say alignment problem is normally how it's like phrased. So like, how do we get it to align with our ethics?
Okay, right.
Do you know what I mean? So like, and there's loads of stuff going on to, you know, the couple, like, I'll come back to your driving cars example in a minute, but
it was just but
it's like alignment with it. So it's like, if I think I've told you this before, but this isn't obviously a true case, but just like, you can imagine saying to the computer, right, I want you to get rid of, or we want to get rid of spam, because like spam email is just really annoying. So you get this autonomous agent that can do anything, and they say, right, we just want to get rid of spam. Well, one way to get rid of spam is to just like kill all humans. Do you see what I mean, kind of thing? So like, you could just like kill everyone, and then there's no spam.
No spam.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Problem solved.
But like, you can see how that is like theoretically. If it's just literally, if there's no alignment, then that is a completely relevant use case. You know what I mean? Or a completely relevant answer. You know what I mean? So that's a perfectly reasonable response. You know what I mean? If you don't have any alignment, so there is an importance there of having like AI aligns with our ethics, but then you get really deep with politics and stuff like that. With like, what are our ethics? Because some people's ethics are different to others. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, different people have different thoughts on what's right and what's wrong. You know what I mean? That's always going to be the case. So getting an AI that aligns with my principles compared to yours, compared to someone else, compared to someone that's really different, you know, that's going to be difficult. You know what I mean? There's certain things that we can sort of assume, but you can't
legal
assume,
things. I suppose they obviously have to follow those lines and guidelines of the sort of, you know.
But then there's like, you know, there's definitely things beyond that you don't necessarily have an answer to that everyone will agree with. So that's bit. And then so come back to your driverless cars. That's interesting because that obviously brings it real home. So I find the driverless cars debate really interesting because it's definitely something where even if the driverless cars are like many times safer, if someone dies someone, there'll be everyone calling for them to be banned.
Of course,
you know what I mean? And that's what I find. It's so stupid in a way, because it's like if they're like 20 times safer, then surely you like want them all the time. You know what I mean? That's what you want to use all the time. Surely you wouldn't want anyone driving. You know what I mean? If they're 20 times safer, but instead it's 20 times safer, so that means there's only like, let's just say there's 100,000 deaths. I have no idea what the number is. And so suddenly it's like now there's like only 5,000 deaths. You know what I mean? Well,
the 5,000
deaths, it's going to be like that's going to be seen as like worse almost.
Well,
you know
I
what
suppose that comes down to the fact
Yeah.
that it's obviously, you know, if you were to go out
Mm.
and you know hit someone with your car, it's on
There's
you.
a blame, yeah. That's
But
the thing.
there's
It's
who
difficult.
would
Who do you get
blaming?
blamed?
Yeah, who
Exactly,
would blame
yeah.
the coder, or would
What-
blaming
yeah.
the car manufacturer?
Yeah.
Or
What's interesting is I listened to a podcast from someone that I can't remember who it was, but it was in San Francisco where they've actually got driverless cars going round.
Yeah,
And they were saying that over like they've done like 30 million miles, and that question of should I hit this or should I hit that hasn't come up ever.
really.
Do you see what I mean, kind of thing? So like that in
Wow.
the code, it's never in the logs, if you like, it's never come up that there is like an ethical question like that. And I guess the point is that it's saying that is a very, like, to be fair, like, have you ever had that issue?
No.
Is that why you've been driving? Like,
Yeah,
I've not, you know what I
no,
mean? Kind of
yeah,
thing. I've never
fair
like people say, oh, what about this issue? And it's like, yeah, but how often is that issue a real issue? Like, should I hit this person?
There's definitely
like
more
the
issues.
problem.
Yeah,
The trolley problem, it's
yeah.
called. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that. But how often does that actually arise? And then if
Yeah.
these cars are like thousands of times safer, which potentially they could be in the long run, you know what I mean? But for serious, like maybe not for bumps, but for serious like deaths, you know what I mean? Like then if that is so rare, then I guess I don't think that's as big an issue as everyone makes out. Is
I get
basically
what
what I
you
think,
mean,
because I
yeah.
just don't think that happens. I think everyone's situation is always I've just got to slam my brakes on.
Mm.
You know what I mean? I don't think most of the time you'll ever, and I think accidents are so unbelievably quick that they happen that there's no time that the human can even go, oh, do I do that or do I do that? Do you know what I mean? I just think I just think it's a much
very,
rarer,
very,
very
very
rare.
rare
You know, the
case,
reality is normally a serious accident happens because someone's not driving properly on the motorway or something like that, you know what I mean, or not looking correctly. Not for everyone, obviously.
Mm.
And the reality is these things we'll see a lot more, and at first they'll probably drive slower. Do you know what I mean? And like I think these ones going around San Francisco go a few mile an hour under the limit as they go around.
Yeah.
They definitely have had bumps. I'm pretty certain they've had no fatalities. I'm not going to say that absolutely, but I'm pretty damn certain they haven't even had any like serious injuries. You know what I mean? I think they've just had bumps into things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some people have suggested they do quite weird things, like they'll sometimes swerve out and do things like that. So I don't know how that works, but I think generally they are pretty well received because they are safer in reality. You know what I mean? And that's it. And like obviously as time goes on, the other side of things as well is I think I'm probably talking for quite a long time, but when you have just driverless cars, I think they'll be even more safer. Do you know what I mean? Like kind of thing when it's like at the moment the reason why they're not safe is potentially because you've got a mixture of humans and driverless cars.
Think as well if it gets to a point where it is all driverless cars, you know, like the whole thing of like the speed, I suppose. Yeah. If there's no crashes in it, then they can probably scale it up so everything will be much quicker and
I think so.
seamless, and because they'll all be aligned.
Yeah,
won't they,
I certainly think that if you were to be able to like you've got motorways where they're designated roads.
Yes.
I certainly think when you have just driverless cars with designated roads that nothing else will be on.
Yeah. There's no people, there's no built up areas, there's nothing like that.
I don't think they'll end up much quicker in a built up area because I just think why would you want it to go 50
people
mile an hour?
People are still going to exist, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? Like I guess you could fence everything off. Do you know what I mean? So that it doesn't come down. But I don't know. Like, but I definitely think when you get to the point of a motorway that's just driverless cars, what's to stop them going at 200 miles an hour? You know what I mean? If that's as long as it's not uncomfortable for the person in it, you know what I mean? Like I think that I could absolutely see that happening. You know what I mean? Because why wouldn't you? You know what I mean? Why would you go any slower when if basically the car is basically saying I'm always going to be 140 or 200 meters behind the car in front, you know what I mean? I'm always going to maintain that gap. So there's literally very rare occasions where something would get in its way. I think that's a definite, you know what I mean, really.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
Nice one.
Well,
great stuff.
Yeah. It's been fun.
Great stuff,
we'll see you next time.
Yeah, see you next time.
Cool
Good stuff.